Good morning.
It is actually a great pleasure for me to be here and to speak with you about NEEM. And the potential that it offers is very visible within HHS. And so what I'm going to do today is try and give you a little bit of an idea of the value proposition that we see within the Department of Health and Human Services for participating in NEEM. And admittedly, we are in the early stages of adoption and becoming full participants, with the exception of some components of our organization that I'll reference here a little bit. What I hope to do is I hope to talk to you a little bit about, what HHS does and give you some background about that you can start to formulate an opinion about why participation in NEEM is so beneficial for us. We'll talk about the information sharing and the data architecture efforts currently going on and how that needs to transition over to a more full NEEM participation. And then we'll talk about next steps and things that we are currently engaged in with NEEM at HHS. So what you see before you is what we call our temple slide, and it's a little bit of an eye chart if you try and read all of the text. But the basic concept here is that we have several mission areas that would benefit from some type of an analysis, architectural approach, development of a strategic and tactical direction that supports some of the health and human services mission areas of HHS. And to give you an idea of some of the areas of interaction that HHS engages in with all of our partners, HHS, if you look on the right-hand side of this slide, it includes more than 300 programs. That's a large amount of disparity and unique mission needs that have to be addressed. And so you have a lot of specific areas in the health and human services domains that need to be addressed. And you'll see as we progress through the slides here that we do not do this independently. We have an extensive set of partners, and we have a disparate set of organizations that they themselves have to work together. The second bullet here talks about the fact that HHS, being the largest civilian agency in the federal government, their budget represents almost a quarter of all federal outlays. And so you might say, well, HHS has got a tremendous amount of money. They ought to be doing great and wonderful things. Well, the fact is that they are, but the next bullet tells you where most of that money goes, and that is that HHS administers more grant dollars than all other federal agencies combined. And so a lot of this money goes out into the state, local, tribal, research communities, et cetera, to advance the health and human services agenda that HHS promulgates through a nationwide perspective. And so you can start to see that as we push things out to all those partners, and as those partners push things back to us, because this is not a one-way street, we start to harmonize how we need to do things, or we should. And I will tell you that there are opportunities for improvement in this area of collaboration that have yet to be explored, and participation in NEEM represents a tremendous opportunity for that, to advance that. And also we've got the Henry Chow, the Chief Technology Officer for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services here. But Medicare is the nation's largest health insurer. And so you can also see how this fits into the overall health care reform agenda of the current Obama administration. And in fact, that whole perspective on how things need to change, and the fact that there needs to be an information-driven evolution in that healthcare reform. And so Henry and the CMS folks are great participants in that. And so we definitely value that effort. The HHS budget, $737 billion. I used to have a slide that reflected, I think, a past fiscal year's perspective on that. And I think a couple years back, that was larger than the budget for the country of Russia. And I was floored by that. And I said, so we have a responsibility to use that money effectively, and I say we in the collective because of all the partnerships that we hold. A little bit about HHS organizational structure. I mentioned the disparate missions. So you can see that there's a lot of organizations that make up HHS, and some of you may, or some of you may not, realize that we have under the HHS umbrella certain what I consider household or trademark names. Now, the first one on the left is our Administration for Children and Families. They are already a willing participant in NEAM, and there is a presentation, I believe, at the during the event, these next couple of days, that talks about how they participate in that. Our agency for our Administration for Health Research and Quality, our Administration on Aging, our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I think that people are fully aware of their role in the population health and the healthcare agenda for the nation. They are in the news quite often, but many of you may not realize that they fall under the HHS umbrella. I mentioned the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, largest insurance company in the nation. The Food and Drug Administration, you may have heard about them in the news. I mean, they're just a small little organization that does a great amount of work. Our Indian Health Service that serve our indigenous populations, they actually deliver health care in some of the most desolate areas nationwide. Some of the areas where they deliver health care you can only get to by helicopter. You don't hear much about them, but they are really a group of dedicated folks. Our Healthcare Resources and Services Administration, they do a lot of good work in community health clinics. A lot of where those grant dollars go is to support community health centers. Our National Institutes of Health, you may have heard about them, and in fact the President is going to be at the National Institutes of Health today talking about the research agenda for them. And then we have obviously the Office of the Secretary, and another smaller organization that does great work is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So you can see a large breadth of variability here, and they have to work together, and one of the ways we do that is through managing our information and our data. You may have heard about the economic stimulus, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. This gives you a breakdown of what we got out of that. I think it was $787 billion in additional dollars. So I think the HHS portion of that goes out into our partner areas is about $157 billion in addition to the budget that I previously mentioned. I think there's been an update. The total gross outlays on this is now, I think it's the Recovery Act site has been updated, and it's about $32 billion. So $32 billion of this has already gone out the door into maybe some of your communities. Okay, so you've heard about the health IT agenda of the current Obama administration, and you may have also heard that they view information as the driver for positive change. And so obviously you have to collect data and turn that into valuable information that drives a positive agenda in areas such as healthcare reform. And so we've had a data architecture program at HHS for quite some time, struggling with all of our disparate partners and our disparate organizations, trying to harmonize a lot of this. And so, and what we've done is consistent with the overall federal effort, and there's a couple of reference points here about how this is consistent with the federal enterprise architecture that you'll probably hear about a little bit later on. But every organization is trying to do this, and that's really a positive thing, but it's also part of the problem, is that they're trying to do this independently, and well-intended, but independently. So you develop within this process a conceptual data model, and so everybody has their perception of what these data objects should be, and what their relationships are to each other. And so again, everybody has these projects going on. Everybody is well intended. Everybody is well informed within their own subject matter areas. And so this evolution is driven from an enterprise architecture perspective, where you take a look at, as you do your process modeling, you identify information exchange packages, and you start to drill down. And so we drill down into these areas, and we achieve clarity, we think.